What up, soldiers? Texas Girl 409, aka the Iraq Veteran Gamer, bringing you another installment of War Stories. Today I'm going to talk about my PTSD symptoms. If you're thinking about joining the military, this is one thing you really need to look into because PTSD is becoming an epidemic. So many soldiers are coming back experiencing PTSD and they don't even realize it because they don't know the symptoms, they weren't educated about it. You know, they don't tell you that much about it while you're in the military. And your recruiters definitely aren't going to talk about it. So you really need to look this up so you can notice the warning signs. So if you do happen to go to war and you start experiencing these symptoms, you can get treatment ASAP because you know you're experiencing PTSD. Because the sooner you treat PTSD, the better chance you have of coping with it. They don't know if PTSD is curable. From what I've studied, there's two types of PTSD. There's acute PTSD and there's chronic PTSD. Acute PTSD means you got treatment within the first, I think, 6 months of having PTSD. And chronic PTSD is if you go over 6 months without treatment. And what they say is if you have chronic PTSD, which I have, that you will never 100% get over it. You just have to try to learn to cope. So noticing the warning signs and getting treatment ASAP will help you in your recovery. So what is PTSD? Post-traumatic stress disorder is a type of anxiety disorder. It can occur after you've seen or experienced a traumatic event that involved the threat of injury or death. The cause of PTSD is unknown. Psychological, genetic, physical, and social factors are involved. PTSD changes the body's response to stress. It affects the stress hormones and chemicals that carry information between the nerves. It is not known why traumatic events cause PTSD in some people and it doesn't affect others. Having a history of trauma may increase your risk for getting PTSD after a recent traumatic event. There are over 20 symptoms with PTSD and they're broken down into 3 brackets. The first bracket is reliving the event. The second bracket is avoidance, and the third bracket is arousal, and not sexual arousal, you fucking perverts. The symptoms that fall under reliving the event, which disturbs day-to-day activity, are flashback episodes, where the event seems to be happening over and over. An example of that is I've had one dreamlike flashback, because not every flashback is like a dream, like that you see in the movies, you know, where they're sitting there, and they kind of like daze off, the screen waves, and then they're automatically back in war. Not every flashback is like that. I've only had one dreamlike flashback where I actually felt as if I was actually back in Iraq. This happened back in 2009 when I was in a PTSD program to get treatment for my PTSD, obviously. What happened was it was my first day in the program and everybody was going off to watch a movie. On our way back from the movie, I was sitting on the bus and I was sitting next to the window. The incident I had a flashback about was the incident about Sergeant Snell. If you missed that episode about Sergeant Snell, I will put an annotation right here. Shazam! Be sure to go check that out. But I was sitting next to the window and I was looking out of it, and all I remember was it felt like I was sitting in my Humvee again, looking out the window. And I mentioned in the Sergeant Snell video that I remember seeing his Humvee driving by, and he was in the back of the Humvee and his legs were sticking out of the doors, and I remember looking at him when they were driving by. Well, in this flashback, it felt like I was backing my Humvee, and I seriously turned my head like this, like I was watching his Humvee drive by again. And then I came back to, and I was kind of freaked out because I've never had a flashback like that. And it kind of fucked with me. Because once you have a flashback like that, it kind of puts you in a depressed mood. Because it brings back all those emotions about the event. But that's the only dreamlike flashback I've ever had. I've experienced auditory flashbacks. Like within the past week and a half, these auditory flashbacks have been coming back for some reason. And what it is I hear and feel the explosions of bombs in my ear. It mostly happens in my right ear, but occasionally it'll happen in my left ear. I started noticing this type of flashback not too long after I got back from Iraq. The first time it happened, I was sitting in my room, and I think I was playing PlayStation. And the best way to describe how it feels or how it sounds is, have you ever had a wasp or a bee or a big bug fly really, really close to your ear, and it kind of makes that whoosh sound, and you can feel it inside your ear? Well, that's what it felt like, and that's what it sounded like. The first time it happened, I heard whoosh, and I looked around my room because I was looking for a bee or a wasp or something that flew really close to my ear, because the first time it happened, it didn't click to me that it was a bomb going off. So I was like, where the fuck is that dirty intelligent bug at? I'm gonna kill that motherfucker. But one time it happened, as soon as it happened, I thought bomb. Because when a bomb goes off, even if it's a mile away, you still might be able to hear or feel the concussion inside your ear. Because when a bomb goes off really close, you can feel it within your body because of the concussion of it. Another symptom is repeated upsetting memories of the event. Another symptom is repeated memories of the event. I've experienced this a lot, and I still experience it today. The best example I can give of this symptom is, it's called an intrusive thought. An intrusive thought is a thought that you do not want to think of because it has bad emotions attached to that thought, but you start thinking about that thought and you can't get it to go away. Like back in 2009, when I was the worst with my PTSD, I could be sitting there playing Call of Duty or just sitting there watching a movie that has nothing to do with a gun or war or nothing, and I could just drift off thinking about Iraq. I used to obsess about Iraq. I used to go and watch videos about Iraq. I used to study PTSD all the time. I was obsessed with it, and I don't really know why. I think it was because I was trying to figure out what the fuck was wrong with me. Another symptom is nightmares, and I've had many fucked up, crazy ass nightmares. I mean, I've woke up not crying from a nightmare, but I've woke up bawling from a nightmare. I mean, I woke up like in the middle of fucking bawling. I'd be waking up like, what the fuck? If y'all want some bonus episodes of war stories, I can try to remember some of my dreams and I can share those with y'all. I remember my first nightmare I've had about Iraq when I was over there, and I remember a couple others, so if y'all want to hear those, let me know. Another symptom is strong, uncomfortable reactions to situations that remind you of the event. Example of this is in the last episode of War Stories about my leave from Iraq. If you missed that episode, the annotation will be in the top left hand corner. Next, we're going to get into the avoidance symptoms. This next symptom was probably the hardest symptom to deal with. What it is emotional numbing. And what it was for me is the only emotions I felt was anger and sadness. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel alright. I was either real sad or I was real angry. I would get so angry when I would see a MySpace status about somebody being happy. I know what most of y'all are thinking, what the fuck is a MySpace? Remember, this was back in 2009 when people still knew what MySpace was. I would just get so fucking pissed off because I couldn't feel happiness. I didn't know what that felt like. And there would be times where I would just start crying for no reason. Just out of nowhere, I would just start bawling, and I wouldn't even know why. Like, that still kind of happens right now. It actually happened a week ago. Like, I was happy, and then all of a sudden I just started crying, and I didn't know why. You know, I admit I cry. You know, soldiers cry too. Shit, we're all human. Everybody cries. But what hurt me the most with losing my emotions was losing the ability to love anything. I didn't love anybody. And still today, I have a hard time loving somebody. And especially when one of your goals in life is to have a family of your own and love them and care for them. And when you can't see yourself loving again, it really breaks you down. Another symptom is feeling detached. I guess an example of that would be, since I couldn't feel anything and I felt like I couldn't relate to anybody, I sheltered myself away from society, period. I have spent months and months in this room right here without even leaving my driveway for months at a time. I wouldn't go anywhere. I wouldn't have no contact with anybody. And solitary confinement is not good for you. It is not good for you at all. You will go crazy. And I did that for about a year, where I just didn't hang out with anybody. You know, so it starts to make you feel like you're not attached to anything. Another symptom is being unable to remember important aspects of the trauma. This happened when I was a week or two away from coming back to the States. The new unit, we were training them, and I was trying to tell them the story about Sergeant Snell, and one of my sergeants made me sit down because I couldn't get through the story. It wasn't I couldn't get through the story because I was sad or anything like that. I just couldn't get the whole story out, kind of like I'm doing now, how I'm pausing and trying to think of what I'm going to say. That's what I was doing, but I couldn't say anything. It was like I couldn't really remember what happened. I don't know, it was fucking weird. The next symptom is having a lack of interest in normal activities. There would be times where I would just sit and do absolutely nothing because I had no interest in anything. I didn't want to play PlayStation. I didn't want to listen to music. I didn't want to surf the web. Didn't want to do nothing. I just sat in silence. Another symptom is showing less of your moods. I think that's pretty much the same as emotional numbing, so no need for an example for that. Avoiding places, people, or thoughts that remind you of the event. I'm not sure if I avoided people or if I avoided anything for the simple fact that it reminded me of Iraq, but I know that I did avoid people. I just, still to this day, I don't know why I done it. I guess it's because I felt like I didn't want to become a hassle to anybody, since I was just so down and depressed, and only thing I could really want to talk about was Iraq, because that's the only thing I would think about. Another symptom is feeling like you have no future. I know for me, especially at that point in time, back in 2009, I just really wanted to love somebody. I really wanted to have a family. But since I couldn't love, I really thought that there was no point in the future. And especially if that was the way I was going to live for the rest of my life, I really didn't want to live. The next bracket of symptoms is in the arousal group. The first symptom is difficulty concentrating. That is a huge problem for me. One example is there would be times where I would grab a gallon of water out of the fridge, and then I would grab a cup out of the cupboard. I have never called a cabinet a cupboard, so I don't know why I just called it a cupboard. I usually call it a cabinet, but you know what I'm talking about. So say I would pour my glass of water, right? I would set the water down, and without thinking, I would open up the cupboard, the cabinet. I don't know why I call it a fucking cupboard again. And I would try to stick the gallon of water in the cabinet. And when I would hit the shelf, because it wouldn't fit, I'd be like, what the fuck am I doing? And I'd get pissed. Because I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I doing such a fucking retarded thing? The next symptom is startled easily. This happens all the time. One thing you don't want to ever do to a soldier, especially a soldier that has PTSD, say they're standing with their back towards you, you don't want to go up to them and pat them on the back, because they would probably be like, what the fuck? That's how I'd be. And like, if I hear a car backfire, I'll stop and look, and you know, kind of make me jump. But one weird fear that I have, it is fucking really weird. I have a weird fear of stuff flying at me. Like, say if there's a bug flying around me, if I don't have my eye on that bug from a distance, and he just like flies right in front of me, it will startle me. But if I see that bug at a distance and I see it fly towards me, it won't bug me. It's just if it flies in front of me without me knowing about it. The same thing goes with like shadows overhead. Like if a bird flies overhead and it leaves like a shadow on the ground, I'll like freak out. I don't know, it's fucking weird. The next symptom is having an exaggerated response to things that startle you. July 4th of 2009, which was one of the few times I got out of the house, I went and watched the fireworks. Well, I was in front of like hundreds of people, and I was recording the fireworks. And fireworks are fucking horrible. I hate them. Because with the it just sounds so much like mortars and rockets. But about the first 30 seconds to the first minute that the fireworks were going off, I was standing there recording. And then all of a sudden, I started freaking out slowly. Started having a panic attack. And I just hit the ground. Just all of a sudden, just hit the ground out of nowhere. And everybody was looking at me. It was fucking embarrassing. It's the type of shit you have to deal with. Another symptom is feeling more aware. I notice when I'm in a car, because driving over there, you have to scan every inch, every centimeter of the road to make sure that there's not a bomb, an IED on the side of the road. So I find myself always looking at the road when I'm in a car. And I guess another example of being aware, in a way, is for the past 3 years, whenever I leave somebody's house, or anytime I leave somewhere, I always feel like I'm forgetting something. I always check my pockets, make sure I have everything. And it wasn't until the beginning of this year, or the end of last year, that I finally realized what I'm looking for. I'm looking for my fucking M16 that I do not have. Because I carried that motherfucker for 15 months straight, that now, whenever I leave somewhere, I always feel like I'm forgetting something. And I feel like I'm forgetting my M16. That's what it is. I'm not really forgetting something. I just feel like I am because I don't have my fucking weapon. That's why when soldiers come back from war, they always want to buy guns, because we feel like we have to have a weapon. Another symptom is feeling irritable or outburst of anger. I have a problem with balance, which can be another symptom of PTSD. So when I get out of my chair, a lot of times I'll fall over or I'll lose my balance. And anytime that happens, I'll be like this. God damn it, motherfucking son of a bitch! This is fucking camel shit. Another symptom is having trouble falling or staying asleep. This is one symptom that I really struggle with now, and I've always struggled with. When I first got back from Iraq, I would sleep 2 hours, and then I would stay up for a couple of days, like 48 hours, maybe a little bit more. Sleep another an hour to 3 hours, and then I would stay up another 48 hours or a little bit more. And I would do that throughout Monday through Friday. And then on Saturday or Sunday I would crash for like 15 hours, then I would do it all over again. And this went on for months. And this was while taking sleep meds, and I would still only sleep 1 to 3 hours. My sleep's a lot better now, but the problem I have with sleep now is I will switch sleep cycles all the time, and that's a fucking tongue twister. Switch sleep cycles. Yeah, I can't even do it twice. I give up. So I'll go from sleeping at 2 in the morning to like 10 in the morning. I'll do that for a couple months, and then I'll go from sleeping at like 6, 7, 8 in the morning till sometime in the afternoon, and that rotation happens every couple months. It gets very fucking annoying. Well, that's pretty much all the major symptoms. That was actually harder than I thought it was going to be. So anybody who's thinking about joining the military, I hope this really helps you out. And if you ever go to war, I hope this really, really helps you out if you happen to get PTSD, and you can get the treatment fast enough so you can learn to cope faster. So I went 3 years without getting help. Or it was like 2.5 years without getting help. And it almost cost me my life. Because all of 2009, I would go in and out wanting to kill myself. But luckily I went and got help, and now I'm slowly learning to cope. And anybody that has PTSD, just know you can learn to cope. Things can get better. They might not ever get 100%, but fuck, when the hell is anything 100%? Anyways, please give this video a thumbs up and favorite it. Not just so I can get more views, but so it could potentially help somebody. I know this episode is long as fuck, but I hope y'all watch this all the way through. Anyways, much love from the Iraq veteran gamer. I'm going to motherfucking bed. Peace, bitches.